In 2018, in Rockford, Michigan, Brent Reame, a spice importer, kept losing track of his most valuable product. Not cash, not equipment, but boxes of vanilla beans worth thousands of dollars. For months, the numbers made no sense. Stock kept dropping even though sales were still up. So, Brent set up a small camera in his warehouse one evening. The next morning, he watched a trusted employee walk in at 4 a.m. and steal a 50-pound box of vanilla. Her name was Teresa Collins, a woman other workers described as a mother figure. Yet, investigation would later reveal that she sold more than $100,000 worth of vanilla beans through eBay. A crime like this sounds strange at first, but the moment you ask why vanilla is worth enough to steal before sunrise, the story widens fast. You see, because of vanilla, U.S. citizens have been arrested for being intoxicated on it, and companies have even been sued for millions. But worse, in Madagascar, where the U.S. gets most of its vanilla, the story turns into pure horror. Brave journalists like Marino Rajanina have faced kidnapping and assassination attempts simply for exposing the corruption behind the vanilla trade. And as if that wasn't enough, little children are jailed, innocent people attacked, and farmers forced to take the law into their own hands. Today, we're exploring the dark reality behind vanilla. In 2019, a woman named Michelle Ann walked into a grocery store in New York and grabbed a bottle of Califia vanilla almond milk. But what she didn't know was that she would one day be taking Califia to court because of that very milk. The label on the bottle showed a vanilla flower alongside almond seeds, indicating the real deal. So Michelle paid almost $7 for it without a second thought. But when she dug into the small print, she realized she had been fooled. Michelle would later explain that she bought the almond milk because the flower on the label and the name itself suggested the flavor came straight from real vanilla. Except it didn't. The flavor instead came from a chemical compound found in tree bark or lignin, not the orchid bean where real vanilla comes from.
You've got the picture of the vanilla on the box. Any reasonable consumer is going to look at that and say, oh, okay, I shouldn't think for a second that this is tree bark flavoring your milk.
That little detail started a class action lawsuit that spread far beyond Michelle. And suddenly, Califia Farms was in the middle of a national fight over what companies can claim on their labels. So you might be wondering, why don't companies like Califia just use real vanilla? Well, this is where the story gets really complicated. You see, real vanilla comes from an orchid vine that takes 3 to 4 years to mature. The flower opens for 1 day each year, so farmers check each bloom and use a small wooden stick to place the pollen at the right moment. Miss it, and that flower won't produce a bean until the next season. But as if that wasn't bad enough, even after the bean is picked, the process of curing, drying, and sweating can take up to 6 to 9 months. Because of this incredible labor and time, real vanilla is the second most expensive spice in the world after saffron. Yet the demand for vanilla flavor is far greater than what these small orchids can produce. So food manufacturers face a choice: spend fortunes on the real bean or find a way to fake it. Unfortunately, they usually go for the latter. Between 2016 and 2024, a major legal battle was waged against the Unilever-owned Breyers ice cream over its so-called natural vanilla flavor. A class action lawsuit claimed that the Breyers label gave the false impression that the flavor was derived only from the vanilla plant when it wasn't.
Breyers Natural Vanilla is made with 100% grade A milk and cream and only sustainably farmed vanilla. Better starts with Breyers.
But to make things worse, Breyers was also using flavor compounds from other non-vanilla plant sources to enhance their product. The lawsuit was later settled for a staggering $8.85 million. And as part of that settlement, the company had to agree to change its formula to stop using flavors from non-vanilla plants. Think about that. A court settlement pushed one of the biggest food companies in the country to admit that its vanilla product misled customers. It also forced the company to change the formula. If everything were as honest as the label made it seem, there would be no reason to do any of that. This means that for these companies, getting caught is just a cost of doing business, and paying a settlement is often easier than telling the truth from the start. But what happens when this kind of fraud turns toxic? Let's ask the FDA, because for decades, it has been warning U.S. consumers about vanilla sold across the border in Mexico and other Latin American countries. This Mexican vanilla is much cheaper than the real thing, but that's because it's frequently made with extract from the tonka bean, which is the fruit of an entirely different tree. The tonka bean contains a compound called coumarin, and coumarin is related to the ingredients used in some blood-thinning medications. And guess what? The FDA banned coumarin from all U.S. food products back in 1954 because of its potential toxicity, especially liver damage. So, if you are already taking a blood thinner, eating Mexican vanilla could be incredibly dangerous. But even when you get your hands on the real vanilla extracts, you might also be putting yourself in danger. In October 2017, in Burke County, North Carolina, police respond to a crash in a heavy rainstorm. When they arrived at the scene, they found a man named Travis Williams sitting helplessly in his white Ford truck. As they opened the door, the first thing that hit them was the smell. Not fuel, not smoke, but vanilla. Then they noticed that Williams couldn't speak clearly and his eyes weren't focused. When officers searched his truck, they found several empty bottles of vanilla extract. Later, Williams blew a .26 on the breathalyzer test, which is more than 3 times the legal driving limit. But the question you are probably asking now is, how was he drunk on a baking product? Well, because pure vanilla extract must contain at least 35% alcohol by volume, according to U.S. food guidelines. This is because the alcohol serves as a solvent for the vanilla bean, which makes the extraction of the flavor possible. But once the extract has been used, the alcohol content is lost through heating. Unfortunately, the U.S. law designed to guarantee pure vanilla extract has a dark side. It turns a kitchen staple into a cheap, easily accessible form of alcohol for those struggling with addiction. But vanilla's value doesn't just drive people to self-destruct. Other times, it drives them to betray the people who trust them most. This brings us back to Michigan. Remember the case that began this whole story?
A Rockford woman is charged with embezzling more than $139,000 from the spice company she worked for. But she's not accused of taking cash. She's accused of stealing vanilla beans.
It was Teresa Collins, the trusted employee in Michigan, who was caught on camera stealing over $100,000 worth of vanilla beans. But here's what's crazy. The crimes we've seen so far, the corporate lies, the addiction, the theft, are all just the tip of the iceberg. You see, once we started digging, what we discovered was shocking. In 2018, Marino Rajonina stood outside the Radio Vanilla station in Sambava. As he unlocked the front door and stepped in, he was ready to risk his life again for the truth about vanilla. Rajonina is one of the only journalists in Madagascar willing to investigate the crimes tied to the spice. Each night, his voice reaches thousands of farmers who rely on his reports to understand what is happening to their land, their money, and their safety. He knows the risks. He has been kidnapped before. He's even been threatened more times than he can count. Yet he keeps traveling into villages where no one else wants to go, sitting with families who feel forgotten. But why is this much danger associated with vanilla? Well, there is a deadly battle for the spice because the price is simply out of control. Vanilla sells for hundreds of dollars per kilo and at one point was even more expensive than silver. Because of this, vanilla-growing regions like Madagascar have turned into a war zone. Farmers like Isadora Moradella are always with machetes, which they use as weapons to guard their plantation against thieves.
But his machete isn't for cutting down vines or branches. It's a weapon, protecting his plantation against thieves looking for one thing: vanilla.
They have to sleep in their fields for months, sitting up in the cold, because if they don't guard their vanilla, they will lose everything. One farmer told a journalist that her husband had already been attacked once, so now, when he sleeps, she stays awake. The craziest part is that the theft never ends. You see, farmers claim that as much as 70% of their crops are stolen. Some thieves have also become so bold that they will snatch crops in broad daylight. One farmer named Leon was working in his rice field one day when his entire crop was stolen. He said he was so sad he cried because losing that one harvest meant he had no money to send his children to school and his family suffered all year. But the most shocking part of the story is the failure of the justice system. The farmers are defenseless because the police usually let them down. Thieves who are caught are frequently released after paying bribes since the vanilla money corrupts every part of the local law enforcement. So, do you know what these farmers do when the law can't help them? Well, out of desperation, they carry out the most horrific means of punishment: mob justice. You see, when a thief is caught, the villagers don't call the police anymore. They lynch the criminal without any trial or mercy. Marino Rajonina has personally witnessed the horror. He said that the farmers usually only call him after the murder has happened. But on one occasion, he witnessed it firsthand, and what he saw was deeply disturbing.
I witnessed one murder so far. They killed him right in front of me.
But this is the most insane part of everything. The lynch law is carried out with machetes, and it's so rampant that Rajonina documented over 90 murders in the first half of 2018 alone, 10 of which were farmers killed by thieves. Just think about that for a minute. And all because of what? Vanilla. But here's where it gets really crazy. You see, some of the thieves are actually children driven to steal because of extreme poverty. And when they are caught, the consequences are also brutal. Some were held in overcrowded, unhygienic prisons for years without trial, even before the lynchings began.
I'm scared of catching the plague or leprosy.
It is a fight for survival.
So, in order to lessen the amount of lynching or kids being imprisoned, the farmers have resorted to extreme measures that ruin the very product they are risking their lives to protect. Many have started branding their vanilla beans with identifying codes, hoping this will make the stolen beans traceable. Worse still, some farmers pick their beans before they are completely ripe just to beat the thieves to the harvest. This ruins the quality of the vanilla that eventually makes it to American kitchens, all because of the fear of death and robbery. Unfortunately, it doesn't end there. The pressure to grow more vanilla has led to massive deforestation in protected parks like Masola National Park. Environmental activists report that people are clearing the forest just to gain more land for vanilla, and in turn are rendering endangered animals like lemurs homeless. And here is the tragic irony. The forests they are cutting down are the very thing that makes Madagascar perfect for growing vanilla because it provides the shade and rain the plant needs. So when the forests are gone, the climate will change and the land will lose all its value. The short-term greed for vanilla is destroying the future of the crop and the people who depend on it. This is the hidden cost of the flavor we love. The vanilla in your kitchen likely traveled through this broken system, but now you know the truth.